All right, so color in graphic design. This is a topic that really requires its own special, I think, discussion because it's so important in graphic design. Color really helps to identify the brand. If you think about a lot of the brands that you may already use, if you think about Pepsi or Coca-Cola, you think of one as being red and one as being blue. You think about all different types of packaging, some being red, some being blue. A lot of American packaging actually follows the colors of the flags. So you usually will have one company first or second in most categories in America, and they are red and blue. All the way from like Oreo cookies and Archway cookies. Archway is red, Oreo is blue. So a couple things you should really consider when you think about color. And does the color appropriately represent the client's brand message? This is important because whatever that color represents, if you are choosing let me give an example. If you make like a brand new pop, you want to make a new soda, and you're like, okay, what is our color? What is it going to be? Is it going to be something that's real aggressive and we should maybe make it this impulse color red? Or is it something that's going to be kind of laid back and it's going to be a soothing like yellow or orange or pink lemonade or something like that? So the color should represent that client's brand message. Does it appropriately communicate to the target audience? Do you want something that targets older, retired people? Do you want something that is a little more impactful and impulsive for a younger audience? Is the color free to use? Does any competitor already own that brand color? So back to the soda example, if we're going to create a brand new soda, we probably won't use the red of Coca-Cola. We won't use blue because that's Pepsi. Blue is also in different variations too, like RC Cola uses a version of blue. Dr. Pepper uses a version of red. Green is kind of already taken from Mountain Dew, Sprite, 7-Up, even a little bit of Mellow Yellow. So you have to start thinking about what other colors are available. And also you have to think about number 4 here, what emotional or psychological, symbolic meanings are associated with your color. You also have to think about your culture too. Colors that are popular in America for certain things are known for other things in other countries. So if you're going to have a global brand, you have to consider all of this. I do have a video on here you can watch yourself on color, which is kind of interesting and helpful. So one thing I always like to point out with color, especially for graphic designers and visual communicators, is that you're going to struggle when you put your color and your brand on a whole bunch of different products or marketing materials. It's just something that everyone struggles with. It's never going to match perfectly 100%. So let's just take an example here like Pepsi. Their can, they're printing on aluminum. Here, they're printing on a box or a substrate that is like cardboard, paper. Here, they're printing on a plastic phone case. Here, they're printing on a textile, like shirt, t-shirt material. Could be a hoodie. It could be dye sublimation. It could be embroidery. So you have to think about the yarn color. Textile dye lots. If you dye the actual material itself for a hoodie or sweatpants, the color, that might not look the same as what it looks like on the phone case here or on the paper or on the aluminum. And then you get into pad printing, where that might be on a different type of plastic or a shiny plastic versus a dull plastic. It might be cloisonné jewelry where you're actually putting like an ink that hardens in there. It might be hydro dipping. I couldn't find a Pepsi hydro dipped product here, but it could be screen printed on another type of inflatable plastic or a metal sign, or screen printed on sock material that could be polyester or cotton or a blend. So just know that you're going to do the best you can when it comes time to put these colors on different types of products and marketing pieces. And they won't match all the time. You do the best you can, get them as close as you can, but that's all that can be expected. So we talked a little bit about which soda brands are available, which colors are available. When you get down to some of the real bright colors like Crush here, or like purple sometimes is used for a grape flavor, orange is usually used for the orange flavor. That is important, but a lot of these colors, you just have to change them a little bit. You know, Pepsi and Royal Crown Cola here, RC Cola. RC Cola chose to go with a really dark blue. That's what they wanted. Sprite added a little bit of blue to their green to differentiate a little bit from Mountain Dew. Dr. Pepper uses a different red than Coca-Cola. So you just keep trying to change it a little bit. 7-Up has a little bit of a darker green, and they have a little more white and red in theirs. So one example that some students will ask is, well, how about social media? Facebook, Twitter. This is, I believe, one from Russia, a real popular social media. I forget the name. MySpace, LinkedIn, Tumblr, and I believe now Instagram, and I believe Tumblr has also gone to black. But the bottom line is they all choose a similar kind of blue. And while I'm not in the marketing room for these, I will tell you that researching color for the better part of several decades, all around the world, whenever anyone is surveyed, no matter what culture they're from or what city or country or continent, this type of blue, this medium to light blue, is always chosen as the most favorite color of all human beings. It gets the most votes. And most people guess, and my educated guess as well, is we just see the sky. No matter if you live in the desert, if you live where there's a lot of water, if you live where there is a lot of trees like we do up here in Wisconsin, where there's a lot of green, no matter where you live, you still will always see that sky and that blue sky. And that is probably the reason why these are so popular. So you might remember this from your high school or other college physics classes. Just a little kind of interesting infographic I made to show the sun shines down upon our Earth, sends us radiation, which is just wavelengths, right? Just wavelengths of energy. We have this thing called the electromagnetic spectrum, which is all the radiation from all of, well, basically mostly from our sun, but there is some residual, as small as it is, from stars around us or other solar suns. But basically, if you break down all of these energy waves that the sun radiates down on us, there is this tiny, tiny little thing right in the middle here. And that is what our human eyes have evolved to detect with the cells, the sensor cells in our eyes. And we refer to that little bit of wavelength that we can detect and see as human beings as visible light. So the visible light is basically broken down into like what you might think of a rainbow, right? You typically have the violet and the blues on the bottom, and then it blends up through. You have the blue, and then you have the green, yellow, orange, red, and then violet really comes all the way around, and in this area a little bit too when you get into other kind of a reddish bluish again. But the bottom line is this visible light, we can put that into a circular format, and that is what we use as the color wheel. So this we kind of call it the Munsell 12-step color wheel. But if our eyes were different and if they developed differently, we might see ultraviolet rays. We might see X-rays or gamma rays, or we might see infrared rays, microwaves or radio waves. We just didn't evolve that way. So as we progress down now to the color wheel, this is our 12-step color wheel. And most designers will use this to help build color schemes or color harmonies. And the color harmonies help us to decide, well, maybe this color scheme would look good on this type of packaging. So if you look here, this is our red, this is our yellow, and this is our blue. We traditionally refer to these as our primary colors. And that's because there's no colors you'll mix together. If you think about finger paints when you were a kid, there's no colors you mix together to get red or yellow or blue. These three are mixed together to get the other secondary and tertiary colors. So if I mix a red and a yellow together, I get a secondary color, which would be orange. And then if I mix these others together, I'll get green and violet. So we can also look at some of the ways the color wheel is split up. So if we have a color that is opposite a color on the color wheel, we call that a complement. And if you think about red and green, those are our popular Christmas colors. You might see some other colors on here. If I look at like this purple and maybe a yellowish orange over here, you might get a sports team like the Vikings. If I get like the Denver Broncos, I have orange and blue. So these form these complementary color schemes. You can have a split complement where you take one, opposite it, but move over a couple. And you can also have analogous color schemes. Analogous color schemes are next to each other or kind of juxtaposition to each other on the color wheel. So here you might have kind of this green and yellow, which would be an analogous color scheme or similar to the Packers colors. You can also have a triadic color scheme where you take three colors equally spaced on the color wheel. So this is a good place to start when you start designing anything from a website to packaging to t-shirts to a logo, to say, well, what kind of color scheme might work well for me and for this logo or for this design, and I'll build from that. The color wheel is also kind of split, kind of like right through here into the cool side of the color wheel. The cool colors would be your greens and your blues and your violets. And then your hot colors or more impulsive colors would be your red, your orange, and your yellows. Now, what usually happens when we design things is if we put these cooler colors in the background, they tend to recede kind of away from us, the greens and the blues and the violets. And then these colors, these more alarming colors, tend to pop out at us. So if you can use that to add depth or emphasis to your designs as well. This is most likely just human evolution, because when we look out into the horizon, when you're almost anywhere on Earth, you'll see a blue sky on the horizon. You might see the green trees far away on the horizon. And then some of these are more alarming colors that pop out. Think about nature where you have flowers are these colors. I don't know if I've ever seen a real green flower. We've seen some blue and purple, but these are a little more alarming. Blood is an alarming sign to human beings, and that is more of the alarming red. You also have monochromatic colors where you just take one color and you add white to it to tint it or black to it to shade it. And that will just give you a monochromatic color scheme. And we have achromatic too, which is just basically grayscale. So here's a real life example of an analogous color scheme that this designer chose for this cake recipe, or the cake box of ingredients. So they chose red, and then they have oranges. The browns are really derivative of orange on the color wheel, just a darker orange. And then you have the yellows and kind of the beiges and tans, which are kind of yellowish, orangish, brownish too. But this whole color scheme is based off of a simple analogous color scheme on the color wheel. And it's pretty effective too. Notice that the colors in the background are a little bit duller and kind of muted. And then the colors in the foreground, primarily the cake and the sponge here, and the red in the logo, those are the two things that really kind of pop out at you. And that's by intention. Research has shown that human eyes, the last color we usually see at twilight as the sun goes down, that our eyes can see most clearly, is this green. So There is some evidence that this is why most highway signs are made to be have a green background with white type, because one, they blend in a little bit, which is nice, but we also see this color as twilight starts to set in. I wanted to show you a little bit about, or talk a little bit about complementary colors and after image. If you're ever looking for a complement of a color, all you have to do is in Illustrator, draw whatever color you want, put it in a box, copy that color over here, and then in your color palette, in your little flyout menu, it'll give you the complement here with a mathematical equation, basically. And so these would be harmonious complements. So something to think about as you're building a color scheme. I'll give you a second to do this, but stare right at this black dot right here for about 10 to 15 seconds, and then move your eyes down here. And if I've done my color balancing right, you should see the American flag. Sometimes it only takes a few seconds. What you're seeing here is something that is naturally built into your eyes. And this is an after image. And for some strange reason, the way we've evolved, that after image shows you the complement of these colors. So by making this kind of a darker orange, you will see the field of our flag up here as being blue. And you will see this kind of tealy green go to the brighter red that we have in our flag. And then to balance things out a little bit, these are gray, the whites are gray, and these are black because they're a little bit smaller. But the reason I'm showing you this is myself being a watercolor painter and an acrylic painter, sometimes when I want to mix a complement to a color, all I will do is somewhere on a piece of paper or on my artist palette with acrylic, I'll paint like a red and come up with the red that I want, mix it out. And then I'll stare at that red, and then I will look at a clean piece of paper right next to it, and that will give me that green complement. And then I'll mix paint until it matches, and then I'll have my complements. You can't always do everything on the computer if you're mixing with watercolor paint or other types of paint, oil, pastel, whatever. So your eyes can be used to get that complement as well. All right, and I think we'll stop there. We'll let you read through some of these different pieces here. So that basically is the idea of color and how color fits into graphic design. I can't express enough to you how much you have to think about the branding of that color and delivering the message and reaching the audience. And if a competitor owns that color, when you think about marketing products and being a visual communicator in a marketing and business world, fine artists, sometimes all they really need to think about is the emotional or psychological impact of that color. But we have a different responsibility as graphic designers to think about the business and marketing side of that. All right, so I'm going to pause our recording.